Шановні колеги, ми продовжуємо робочий.
Dear colleagues, we continue our work, and the topic of current press conference is as follows: violation of servicemen and volunteers' rights, and corruption of them in the military prosecutors. We have Dmytro Korobko, Oleksandr Ruzhanskyi, ex-volunteer, Anatoliy Tarasenko by Skype, Mykola Kokhanivskyi, Pavlo Kostenko, NMP, Samopomich faction, who is deputy head of the Parliamentary Committee on Legal Aspects of Law Enforcement Activities, and Yegor Sobolev, member of Parliament from Samopomich faction. Yegor Sobolev will speak the first. Good afternoon. Unfortunately, we have a very sad pretext for our today's meeting. During 6 months, we have been observing the pressure made upon those people who rescued Ukraine. Olexandr and Yuriy found themselves in prison. Olexandr was liberated, but Yuriy is in prison. So what is our role? To attract attention of the society to the fact that many people believe that we live in Euromaidan Ukraine, while we actually came back to the Ukraine of Yanukovych times, and the tradition of Yanukovych repressions continue. The more people will be familiar what's going on with the volunteers and activists, the more chances that we won't come back to the Yanukovych times, because you may recollect Euromaidan. As a member of parliament and the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee, I sent the parliamentary request to Anatoliy Tarasenko, military prosecutor, requesting the numbers, the exact figures of those who are currently persecuted for their military actions in course of Maidan events. For the society, it is important to continue defense of this, continue defending those people. And also we should be ready to eliminate that old monster with many heads, which threatens to overthrow the state. I invite Tetyana Ivanova, lawyer of Oleksandr Ruzhanskyi. Good afternoon. As a lawyer, I am a member of the legal advisors of Ruzhanskyi. Probably broad public knows Ruzhanskyi because he wrote much about the corruption in ATO officials and the fact of small conflict, which was a very short term, and Oleksandr Ruzhanskyi and one more person were lightly injured. So Ruzhanskyi and this two men, after that conflict, which resulted of very negligible injuries, it resulted in huge criminal proceedings. In one criminal proceeding, Ruzhanskyi is suspect, while in the second criminal proceedings, he is a victim. While in the case he is a victim, he is so.
Як не дивно, справи ці дві по одним тим самим подіям розслідують.
So the counterparts in the same offense, accused in line with the different articles. Moreover, there are two prosecutors' officers, different prosecutors' officers participating in the pre-court investigation. The ATO forces prosecutor's office and the military prosecutor's office. So the ATO forces prosecutor's office had taken Ruzhanskyi's case from the general prosecutor's office. They do not have the right to do. From Article 4 or till Article 435, while Ruzhanskyi is accused in line with Article 125, which is not subject, which is not the military crime. Today we have MPs having the background in law, and my question, and they can confirm that in our criminal code, in criminal procedural code, we do not have any provision for those cases where the investigation and case filing are done improperly. The judge cannot send this case back to the investigator's body. Suspects in line with the criminal procedural codes cannot submit appeals, so the lawyers are ready to participate in the process of improving criminal procedural code. And the last statement, Mykola Kokhanivskyi would add, but maybe you watched interviews on TV which suggested that we should collect information about offenses in the ATO area and with involvement of the volunteers and ATO participants. The same initiative was set forward by MPs, so we encourage relatives, friends who know about criminal cases against ATO and volunteer participants to come to us to to produce the unified data. Please do not hurry up. We have Mr. Korobko, lawyer of Yuriy Korostelyov. When we have the conflict in the east of Ukraine, we have bred up a monster inside Ukraine. This is Ukrainian authorities which believe that the volunteers and activists might be dangerous for this new power. About Yuriy Korostelyov, I could tell you that in the courtroom there are armed people, armed security service officers, and we cannot say that the court hearings might be objective. And there are snipers, automatic guns which are withdrawn from the contact line to ensure court hearings on my defendant. Yuriy Korostelyov is not allowed to be released under responsibility of the MPs. The last time when we had a member from Samopomich faction, MP from Samopomich faction, who suggested to take full responsibility after Yuriy and suggested to release him from a jail. Recently, Yuriy was even deprived from the right to appeal to a legal advisor in course of court proceedings devoted to the court's decision to choose form of detention for him. Also, at the same time, we observe that as in terms of some separatists, courts release those separatists, like in Kramatorsk local court. So this implies a discriminational approach of judges. Yesterday, I received information about Babi, Andriy, Bubnovich, Maxim, Bohach, Vasil, Aidar volunteers, Shurov, Roman, Feshenka, Hapov. These are those servicemen, those volunteers who are under court proceedings, and the only reason is that they detained separatists, that they detained militia servicemen who collaborated with separatists, and now they are oppressed. I would like to mention names of judges. Kropodera, Gorecki, Akulenko, Samilenko, Shiher Zalezniak, and other names of judges who continuously make accusative decisions and impose sentences on our volunteers. These are names of prosecutors and police service, and names of police servicemen who contribute to the strong convoy to ensure strong convoy for those imprisoned volunteers.
Пане Дмитре, у нас зараз на скайп-зв'язку Олександр Ружанський.
We have a Skype connection with Oleksandr Ruzhanskyi and Anatoliy Tarasenko. Currently, you can see them on the screen. Can you hear us?
Олександр,
Alexander, you have 3 minutes. You are given the floor. I'll try. Firstly, I would like to say that these cases, where the cases of these servicemen are considered, there is a pressure on lawyers that defend servicemen. They pressure Rybashevka and Tarasov, and Korostelyov case, there is a great pressure on Dmytro, Korobko, and there is an issue that they falsify cases against us, and there is a legal pressure on the people that defend us. But I have a separate topic that is really important, and I would like to use this opportunity to speak and to make the information public about who accuses us, who accuses volunteers who defend our nation. Firstly, I would like to say that Military Prosecutor's Office is an entity that is not under control, and there are many applications and complaints about violations and about the facts of bringing to responsibility those people who are not guilty. And there is also a complaint that I was beaten when I was detained, when they arrested me at home. And this situation in the Military Prosecutor's Office is connected with the fact that there is impunity, and it is not under control of anyone. You can complain to Military Prosecutor's Office, and I would like to give an example how new heads of Prosecutor's Office, their attitude to the situation. 51st Brigade, there were cases against them, and all the cases were closed. And he said that one of the reasons, because he is from the same locality. And what should those people do who are not from the same locality? I would like to ask him. What should we do? But the situation looks different. All those cases, they were started illegally. And the heads of prosecutor's office who gave these orders, they should be brought to responsibility. Lutsenko understands that these cases are illegal, but no one takes responsibility. And the main reason and the main problem about military prosecutor's office is like this. I would like to give some answers. And these are the examples. So on Hromadske TV or Donbass, there is a footage that there was a case falsified about financing terrorism. There was a suspect named Inna Sliptsova, and they tried to get $500 from her, and there was no reaction. And also there was an address of Stavitsky that Matthias tried to extort $3 million out of him. And who will be responsible for this? We should investigate this case, but no one investigates. And going back to the question, what is this organization that acts with impunity towards anyone? You have 1 minute. I wanted to say that transfer of cases from Sergei, who dealt with the Gorbatyuk, to the transfer of these cases to military prosecutor's office is an abuse because no one understands what happened. They transferred these cases to the military prosecutor's office. Kulik, who is involved in corruption, and there are 12 volumes of his case in Anti-Corruption Bureau, will investigate the case of Kurchenko. And Kurchenko is a person, and he has Kokhanivskyi as a friend, and I can mention their names. The situation is catastrophic. And I would like to say that I have evidence that Kulik took part in financing Tetushkas, who killed and mutilated people in Maidan. And there are documents. I can prove the participation. And Sergei Gorbatyuk, who dealt with cases, and he should take information from me, and he should investigate these cases of Kulik. Thank you. You have about 2 minutes, please. Alexander. I would like to say about people who are under protection in military prosecutor's office in Kharkiv. There is a person who was a co-founder of Zhilin firm, and he was in Kharkiv after Zhilin left. He is Andrei Nikonov. He is a former SBU officer, Vanitsky subordinate, who was the former investigator of SBU in Kharkiv Oblast. So, including colleagues Zhilin, Vanitsky, and Nikonov, these are people who are informal group who covered illegal business and fought competitors. And Zhilin lives in Kharkiv. Everything is okay with him. And Nikonov is a man who is involved in gambling business. And this was declared by the military prosecutor's office. And they believe he financed, through his fake firms, upload illegal organization. I got it from Matthew's Facebook page, and we see people who falsify criminal cases connected with financing. Those people are in prison, and we see a real person who financed terrorism, and he is free because he resolved his cases with Kulikov and Matias. Also, I would like to say that we have deputy prosecutors of general prosecutor, and what can we say about his objectivity towards servicemen if Matias has a conflict of interests connected with the firms of his wife? His wife has 3 legal firms, so you can imagine a person from this firm, so they decide these issues. And I want to say that in other firms of Matias' wife, there are criminal cases, not one case, and many cases. So Profit Active, Poly Expo, and Tavriskaya Perspective. So these are the cases of 2012, 2014. I don't know what is the prospect of these cases, but as Matthias was appointed and he married Ms. Barach, so there is no prospect for resolving these cases, and this is a grave violation of law on counteracting and fighting corruption. Thank you, Alexander. So, Anatoliy Tarasenko, you are given the floor. You have up to 4 minutes, no more. thank you for this opportunity to speak and telling you about one more problem that is connected with criminal proceedings that are started in Lugansk and Donetsk oblasts. This is about defendants in the cases. They are those people who fight against Ukraine, those who are not only separatists, but they are openly against Ukraine. They are armed, or they provide information attacks. They influence our state. And these victims, they are those whom they are defendants. These are people whom they believe and against whom they should work. But these are people whom they protect. So in our case, one of the persons who gave evidence against Ruzhanskyi is an FSB agent who was fired, who was released from prison, and he was released from prison in Crimea. He got to Ukraine as a legal person, and now he is under protection of SBU. He is under the decision of the court that didn't hide him in prison, but that provides him with the opportunity to freely live and provide evidence, and he tries to deprive the patriotic person from being free. And there is a question why the majority of the investigators and prosecutors who support state, so why do they have such an attitude to those people who are enemies of Ukraine, and why do they don't like those people who are patriots, actually? And this is what we see in all the cases. So the start of criminal investigation against those people who want to be the defendants in the cases. We demand from the prosecutor's office to start criminal proceedings according to Ukrainian legislation, and they should inform the public about the evidence and whether they were proven. And we say about it. And what I wanted to say at the end, they try to cover their agents, double agent of SSB and prosecutor's office of ATO forces, deputy prosecutor general provides false evidence by sending official documents to people's deputies. Mr. Sobolev, they just confuse you when they say to you where this criminal cases about Ruzhanskyi is. We know that it is in court, but Matthias writes that this is a secret of investigation and it is under investigation. So thank you for your attention, and these issues connected with defense of our defenders is under the media coverage, in the spotlight of media coverage. So stay with us, and we have two more speakers. Pavlo Kostenko, please be brief. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to make a political assessment of the facts we heard about. Of course, General Prosecutor's Office and Military Prosecutor's Office and Mr. Matthias, they are outside their obligations, and there were evidence that he covers business in the territories of ATO, a person who prosecutes our servicemen and who releases separatists who participated in the events that happened in the east of Ukraine. And here there is a big issue. It is understandable that there are two main parts in the General Prosecutor's Office. Military Prosecutor's Office that got broad responsibilities, and investigators. And you know, it is headed by Stalerchuk, deputy of Yuriy Lutsenko. And it is a great issue why today's Prosecutor General why he should release these people he should fire them from the General Prosecutor's Office, because we understand that there will Shokin, Rema, and Magnitsky cause will be continued by Yuriy Lutsenko, and then there is an issue who allows these things in our state. Of course, it was coordinated with the president and his administration. Otherwise, these things are not possible. That's why we, as a political force, we raised the issue that the General Prosecutor's Office should be the institute of power that should restore order, but there is no political will concerning this. And Matias continued to carry out his duties of deputy, and Stalerchuk continues his responsibilities as deputy prosecutor general, and he had investigation. So this brought us to set conclusions that the process should be started from above. We should raised the question that this General Prosecutor's Office should be headed by a person who may establish it as a separate independent body that do not cover illegal business. It should not take part in some illegal actions. Mykola Kokhanivskyi, and then we will end the press conference. So,
I'm coordinator of the Committee on Liberation of Political Prisoners. With the beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian war and after finalization of the Maidan events and liberation of 43 people who were political prisoners. We thought first that this was the end, and we would never have 43, never have political prisoners again. Now we have 54 another political prisoners. So the wave of repressions overwhelmed the country. Actually, each day we learn about new arrested people. These are servicemen from volunteer battalions. Quite often it is difficult to find out whether there is any political component or not. So when people were fighters for Ukraine before Maidan, and they continued to do this during Maidan times and later, like Ruzhanskyi and Yuriy Korostelyov. But the problem becomes more aggravated. We do not know about some people who might be called political prisoners. Quite often people are imprisoned because they were members of the volunteer battalions. Sometimes members of the military forces of Ukraine are imprisoned, and quite often there are court hearings about our volunteers and servicemen upon accusations made by separatists. So we will continue to fight against the regime of internal occupation. The previous regime failed. Maybe this regime also will fall down. This regime is even worse than the previous one. We have the same personalities, same corrupt schemes, etc. It will fall very quickly and political prisoners will be liberated and we will continue our work. Thank you. Thank you, Mykola. Thank you, dear colleagues. We have to finish our press conference. Special thanks to Oleksandr Ruzhanskyi and Anatoliy Tarasenko. Hope to see you soon.
Колеги,
Dear colleague, the last briefing for today will be in 2